Good afternoon. Welcome back, everybody. This is now panel 5, the mayor's meeting. I hope you all had a chance to grab a bite to eat and catch up on a few emails if you needed to. Our next session should be another really great opportunity to hear and ask the questions you want to know from our leaders within the region. Please post any questions you might have into the right-hand panel Q&A, and we will follow up on those a little bit later. To lead this conversation is the Fort St. John and District Chamber of Commerce past president and MNP LLP partner, Julie Ziebart. Welcome, Julie. Thanks for joining us. Julie, you'll have to unmute, please.
Oh, there you go. Sorry about that. Excuse me. Thank you for the introduction, Cheryl, and I thank everyone for joining us. It's going to be a great panel discussion here with our mayors of the Northeast BC. I'd like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Daneza, where we all have the benefit and opportunity to live, work, and play. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce you to the people that we are going to spend this first part of the afternoon with. With me today, we have Mayor Lori Ackerman from the City of Fort St. John. We have Mayor Keith Bertrand from the District of Tumbler Ridge, Mayor Gary Foster from the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality, Mayor Dale Bumstead from the City of Dawson Creek, and Mayor Alan Courtoreille from the District of Chapman. Welcome. And I'd like to ask all of you to spend a couple minutes to give us your opening statement, but also just let us know how your municipality has been doing through this past year and how you're doing now, moving into what we hope to be a very fruitful economic recovery. Lori, if we could start with you.
Sure. Thank you for that introduction, Julie, and hello to all of my colleagues. I want to begin as well by acknowledging that we're on the traditional territory of the Daneza. I want to thank them for being stewards of this land since time immemorial. How did we function during the last year? Well, during the COVID time, and I say that in the sense that hopefully we're seeing the end of it, our staff really took this on and ensured that the public health orders were clearly understood and we were able to manage to the best of our abilities. A lot of people are aware that we backed up the anticipated tax increase, started a mayor standing committee on economic recovery. So through that, we did grants to our for-profit and nonprofit entities to help them with the PPE that was required. We engaged in a conversation around facade upgrades, and that is ongoing, and just a lot of projects through the Mayor Standing Committee. A lot of the things we were able to do were as a result of the provincial government changing some of their requirements that require local government to have the taxes collected on a certain date, or there was a penalty there. So kudos to the provincial government for stepping up and allowing us to do that. We carried on with our capital projects last year. We ensured that our companies had a safety plan in place, and we carried on negotiating a municipal service agreement with our First Nations neighbors. We carried on with 100th Street, the initiation of 100th Street, and the construction of our parks. So we finished the Festival Plaza. We carried on with setting up a community foundation, and all of those things that we needed to do, including the housing needs assessment and all of that stuff that we were required to do. We did it using the public health orders that we needed to.
It's been very busy. One just has to drive down, up and down 100th Street to see the level of activity happening in our community. Thank you.
Mhm.
And next, Mayor Keith Bertrand from District of Tumbler Ridge. Let us know how it's been. You have all our visitors. You have all our visitors in your neck of the woods. So
This is true. I've certainly seen an uptake this summer, most definitely. Thank you, Julie. I appreciate the opportunity to sit here with my colleagues today. And Tumbler Ridge has done so far so good during COVID. I mean, it's definitely been a challenging time for all of us. You know, it seems to be very reactionary mindset, and I'm hoping we can get to a point of being proactive very soon. One big benefit for our community was mining was deemed essential service, so we didn't have a lot of unemployment at the beginning of COVID and even during, so that was really important. And I just got a recent update from Canuma Resources, and a total of 15 cases were confirmed between the 3 mine sites. So they've done a very good job on the contact tracing and their preventative program with the busing and all of that, even on the sites, has been very well done. So I'm happy that took place, and it definitely, I mean, we had a few scattered cases in town, but nothing to the point of an outbreak. We did create a mayor's task force for economic resiliency, and we put out a survey amongst the community to see how everyone was doing at the beginning there, to try and kind of gain a grasp on our economic situation at that time. And it actually showed quite a bit of resilience already in our community, especially within our seniors. So I was quite happy to not be relieved in that sense, but to almost be proud of our residents to step up and really follow the provincial health orders, I believe. So really hats off to my community in that sense. And we've got some really exciting new construction this summer here, which I'll talk about later.
great, thank you. Thank you for that. And who needs little introduction? Mayor Gary Foster from the Northern Rockies Municipality. Tell us how your community has been.
Well, thank you, Julie, and it's nice to be here with the mayors of the Northeast. So during COVID, we didn't have an industry here, a gas industry or a forest industry like some of the other communities here. We rely mainly on our tourism industry. U.S. travelers going up and down the highway, and of course with the international border being closed, it had a tremendous impact on the economy of the Northern Rockies. As far as the municipality goes, the things that were undertaken, of course, were the safety and security of all of our citizens, and to ensure that the government guidelines, regarding safety were followed, and of course the employees of the Northern Rockies. That was one of our main concerns, is to make sure that our employees were safe, that they were following the guidelines of the provincial government, and hopefully that we would get out of this pandemic without, without suffering too much. And that's actually what's happened. We've had a lot of effort from our municipal employees to make sure that things like rec centers are open when they can be open, also following provincial guidelines, but to try to make things as normal as we can for the citizens of the Northern Rockies. So I think we've achieved that. And now that we're coming out the other side of COVID-19, things are beginning to open up. And we're beginning to supply those services that the citizens of the Northern Rockies have come to expect from their municipality. So I'm looking forward to, further openings here. As far as other projects go, we're going to be looking at a lot of capital projects, and like Mayor Bertram, we'll be speaking about that in a little while. But those are the impacts on our economy. It hasn't been as dramatic as what I had feared, And with government assistance, the CERB payments to companies and individuals, it's helped a great deal in the Northern Rockies.
Thank you, Gary. Yes, and Chief Charlene Gale also alluded to the relationships that have been strengthening up in your area earlier this morning, so I applaud you for that as well. And next, we have Mayor Dale Bumstead from the city of Dawson Creek. Welcome, Dale.
Thank you, Julie. Tanse to all. It's a pleasure to be joining the mayors this afternoon. Thank you for hosting this, and it's a pleasure to be here on the traditional territory of the Denizah, the Slavery, the Sikanee, the Beaver, and the Cree, and the Saulteaux people. It's honestly, it was a real unsettling time a little over a year ago when we first were thrown into this pandemic and this virus, and no one really had any understanding at that point in terms of the impacts to it. So we immediately took on the first piece of it was to get to our agencies in the community that were providing help and support to those who may have been in a little more need. And we had those sectors that were closed down completely. The hotels were really in a desperate situation. The restaurants were being closed and reopened, and the hairdressers, the beauty salons, the spas, the gyms were all being impacted. So we were worried about that impact of support to those employees now who were out of work. We allocated 40 or 50 grand out of our budget to be able to allocate back into those agencies to help those agencies provide that on the ground support to our residents. We immediately got into the budget stuff, as Lori talked about. We backed out some of the planned normal increases that we had planned in our budget, both commercial and residential, because we felt that there was going to be an impact to residents and businesses, and so we moved that immediately past there. We were through that first 3 or 4 months, from April to June, July, we were really in that kind of mode of that uncertainty, and also looking to how we were going to be able to move forward with those services we provide in the community. And so that was the next stage and next phase for us as the community, and looking into our arenas and our pools and our performing arts center, and et cetera, et cetera. And so then through the winter, it's really been kind of managing through that and the ups and downs of it. We've been engaged heavily with our local retail sector as one component. It's been really unusual. There's been some sectors that have had record years and others that have been devastated by the pandemic, and it's been really unusual for us to see that, and so we're still conscious of that. And it's been really trying to ensure that we move forward in a way that we can provide those services in the community that people rely on and look to as that quality of life that we provide in the community, and that arts, culture, recreation are so important to our residents and to the region. And so I think now we're in this stage where we see the light at the end of the tunnel. The noose is beginning to loosen. We're seeing the recovery, the forestry sector, the oil and gas sector, the agriculture sector, really amazing and strong commodity prices. We're seeing our hotels back at 100% occupancy. Restaurants are starting to recover. And so we're really encouraged by that, and really looking forward to the remainder of 2021. So it's been a really tough kind of year in terms of how we've been managing the impacts of it, and really heartened by where we're heading and looking forward to the future.
Great, and hopefully we do touch on this a little bit more, but I'm also hoping that your WestJet flights start up soon.
We'll talk about that.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for giving us an update on what is happening in each of your communities. I was going to say it's a beautiful day in the Northeast BC, at least it was this morning, and then now we're in the rain, but it won't stay for the weekend. But let's move on to the questions that we had set out to ask before we get into the Q&A with the crowd. I've talked about it a little bit with Lori and again with Dale, with the Indigenous communities here, and how we're impacted by, and how they've all been impacted by the news of last month. Even though the the discovery of the 215 children was not in our community. We all have had the feelings of despair and desperation of what has happened in our history. And now with the more remains being found in similar circumstances in Saskatchewan and Manitoba, I appreciated being part of the moving and impactful vigils that were held in our community, and I'm sure in all of your communities. It just lent more emphasis on having action to the Truth and Reconciliation Committee or Commission's release of their findings in 2015 and the 94 calls to action within our country and in our province in particular. And I'd ask if you would please share with us how your local government has increased reconciliation efforts with your neighboring First Nations communities and what positive impacts have resulted from your efforts, both socially and economically speaking. And with this, Lori, would you be fine if we started with you?
Sure, I'm happy to share. So for quite some time, we've been building a relationship with our First Nations, in particular because they own fee simple land inside the city, and it's important for us to work with them towards that land becoming IR land. So we have a municipal service agreement that's in draft form. It's got to be approved by members of by the respective councils as in order for it to move forward. So that is something, that's one item that we're working on. I took the opportunity to read the Indian Act, and I don't know how many of you have actually read the Indian Act, but I recommend it. And right after that, you need to read the 21 Things You May Not Know About the Indian Act, because it is truly an eye-opener. We were not informed and educated on any of this as we grew up. At least my generation was not. I believe that future generations will be. And we are doing ourselves a disservice to not only ourselves, but our neighbors by carrying on thinking that we are not on an uneven path, because we are absolutely on an uneven path with our past and our future if we don't rectify things. So I know that over 40 members of the City of Fort St. John, staff members, including myself, we are taking a course through the University of Alberta on Indigenous knowledge. And so it's it takes you right back to square one, stuff that you might have heard a little bit about growing up, but not a lot. And so it's really beneficial. We installed another flagpole at City Hall, and on Monday morning, so the 21st of June, it's National Aboriginal Day, we will be hanging the Treaty 8 flag. So we're hoping that, you know, we're going to be able to socially distance in a respectful way. And the other thing that I just want to touch on is a resolution that I have brought forward to council, and it's about the donor agreement with our community foundation. We have initiated a community foundation. We are contributing $3 million to an operating endowment fund, and we've said that we would put the money from our Site C Legacy Benefit Agreement into another endowment fund for granting out to organizations. And the intention for our donor agreement that I am bringing forward to council is that any organization that was a part of a residential school system or organization or agency, because we don't know yet all the facts, because that's just the way it is. The facts aren't out there. If they have been involved in it and they have not apologized and they have not started the process to make amends, then they will not be welcome to use our funds. So we'll see if council can find the wording for that and move forward in a proactive way with our First Nations. We do have First Nations representation on the foundation board, the inaugural board, so that's exciting too.
That is great, and that is strong messaging for sure with your resolution. I'd like to move to Mayor Bertrand. If you could share with us Tumbler Ridge's efforts.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Julie. just to start with, I just want to say this discovery in Kamloops and now a couple more across the country is an absolute tragedy. It's quite disgusting, to be honest with you, and unfortunately, most of us have lived our lives really not knowing the full truth, and that's going to change. And I do want to, provide my sincerest condolences to all First Nations in that regard. When I first came into office late 2018, I had the pleasure of meeting with West Moberly's council to talk treaty land entitlement. And at that time, I really didn't know a lot about it. So I was definitely forced into learning more. And the more I learned, the more I wanted to learn, because when you look at the history of the treaty land entitlement, how the population was collected, there's just so many inaccuracies in it. And it's just unbelievable in my eyes when I was learning that they have been waiting for over 100 years for an agreement to be abided by. That's just disgusting, in my opinion. And so I'm in complete belief of reconciliation. And we've had multiple engagement opportunities with both West Moberly and Soto in regards to TLE as well. Just recently, we have engaged on our museum foundation is engaged with us all for the tree mask repatriation. We have an ancient tree mask that was found at our flatbed campground when the community was first built. And it's been housed at our community center at the moment, but it's not really in a purpose-built containment system. So we decided to reach out to all the Treaty 8 nations, as well as the Treaty 8 Tribal Association, and really start to collaborate and figure out what the best destination is for this. We certainly don't have any, right of ownership of it or anything like that. We're merely displaying it like it should be at this point, but we certainly want to get it in a proper situation so that no deterioration goes to it. It's quite a piece, actually. And I just, after learning all of the history of it, I just want to say I have a ton of respect for all of our nation's neighbors. And I look forward to the opportunities that the TLE selections will bring in the future as well. There's quite a few selections around Tumbler Ridge and in our geopark, and I think there's multiple opportunities for the nations to capitalize on our tourism industry in our global geopark.
Thank you. And normally I would reach out to Mayor Courtoreille, but he's not quite on our call yet because of the proximity and relationships also. Oh, he just popped up and joined us. So because both of your communities are so close and have the relationships with both Soto First Nations and with West Moberly First Nations, or I would like I'd like to introduce Alan, or take the time now for Mayor Courtoreille. If you are on, I can see your name. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can.
I'm just going to try to get to a video here.
Yes. Well, welcome. I'd like to welcome you. I'm just going to take a quick break from everybody else. If we can introduce you, if you can spend just a couple minutes chatting about your community, and then jump right into the question on what Chetwynd has been doing with Soto and with West Moberly First Nations.
And I'd like to mention that the Tansy Friendship Center, the Métis, so they're a big part of Chetwynd. So I'd like to make sure that they're entered into the fray. Right now, I'm just going to start out. I haven't heard anybody else, so maybe that's good. So I don't have the opportunity to be skewed. So anyway, May 27, 2021, the announcement of 215 unmarked graves found in Kamloops Residential School, a day that brought our Indigenous leaders to our knees. And when we stood up, we prayed. we prayed for every child that was there, for the individual child that never made it home. For those were the last places on this Mother Earth that they stood. So being the First Nation Indigenous meant you were subject to abuse, torture, and that was legalized by our founder, Canada. So it took me a while to try to formulate words that words don't give it justice, because we didn't get any, not yet. And the kids that were laying in the ground that are going home today, I believe, do need the respect. So, but in every community, there's always the darkness I call the negative stereotyping. Gladly only for a few small of our community, the population, a few of them I call that they have the dark side. And I believe that's kind of indicative of most communities. Just a small percentage of them have that dark side. So with that being said, I have a few things that I wanted to mention, and that's the reconciliation that was brought forward in 2015, number 75, right? I had the whole project that I wanted to do on that and talk about it, but you know, when things get started and you have a few tears, right? So, but anyway, I got it written here, Truth and Reconciliation Call to Action number 75, if we read all the Truth and Reconciliations. I'm very pleased for the opportunity to engage you today. My name is Alan Courtoreille, Mayor of the District of Chetwynd. My Kokum grandmother called me Jichawiwin. That means to buy. I spent 9 years of my life in a small town named Fost, where my dad worked. From there, he worked on the Alberta Railroad. So he was born in 1913 in the Driftpile Reserve, Treaty 8. Well, it wasn't the reserve then, but it became the Driftpile First Nation. And that's my nation today. That's where I call home. And I believe that any Treaty 8 needs a home. Anybody, anywhere, doesn't matter what race you are, we need a home, because home is where the heart is, and everybody has heart. And I believe some have the best hearts. So I worked in Camphor. We moved to Cheltenham in 1968. I worked in Camphor when I turned 18. I got escorted out of school because I was fighting probably the establishment, not the students. But anyway, that's what happened to me. And I went and got my dogwood degree in after that, because I didn't want my daughter to have her grade 12 prior to her dad. So I made it a conscious effort to go and get educated and get my dogwood. So I did that. And I worked for Camphor for 41 years. My trade is a saw filer. I did that for 30 years of my 41-year career at Camphor. I ran the saw filing room, so I got a little bit of that kind of company where when you're at the top, sometimes it's lonely. But right now, in my position, I don't feel lonely. I have all the people that work in council, staff, and then when I get to the PRD, this probably was the most important part of my career, was learning about the governance of what we do at the PRD. So it was very important. And to the members I highly respect, and that is Mayor Bumstead and Mayor Ackerman. And I have a friend in Keith, where it's always enjoyable. So anyway, after retiring, I looked for a place to be happy. I guess I found my happy place serving Chetwynd and the surrounding community, and which is very important to me. Happiness seems to be the heart of every individual and mind, because we all have our individual minds. Speaking of mines, coming from a resource-based community, lumber, coal mines, just a shout out to the Kanuma Coal Resource Limited. And we live in a place of oil and gas, pipeline explorations, and a tourism industry that looks very promising for the outdoor enthusiasts. We have a lot of trails and waterfalls and rivers, fishing, hiking, and anything that you want to be to do in this country. We have it, because we have 2 days of summer and the rest of winter. because we're in January right now. So I believe we have the best of all worlds right here in the Northeast. I would like to point out a few things about LNG that has done for our community. LNG has an impact in Chetwynd and surrounding area in a variety of ways, including an economic boost to the residents who have rental homes for the extra room and extra bit of money that goes into their pockets that is spent in our community for the housing that they provide, an extra room. It is just great for us. The LNG has provided the economic boost to Chetwynd area businesses which provide food supplies, supplying the LNG and the individual workers for LNG. Coastal GasLink has supported a variety of local endeavors, including supporting construction of the medical clinic here in Chetwynd, supporting the Chamber of Commerce in their networking sessions, so sponsoring the Bursting with Brilliance Women's Leadership events, supporting the Chetwynd Fire Hall and training equipment, other community events such as Chetwynd chainsaw carvings, supporting our schools, the Don Titus Elementary Playground. Coastal GasLink employees have been using the district gyms, pools, playing baseball, and the community, and participating in other events that are offered. And one of the things that I found very generous of the LNG workers, that it wasn't their company, but the individuals went around raising funds through 50/50s, through other means, and donating back to our local people that in need. They were giving them a hand up. So I applaud that initiative from the employees, not basically because I know LNG at the top level does a lot for our community. Just read here in the port of Prince Rupert, $6.7 trillion of chemical petroleum goes through that, and it's all coming from Northeast. And I believe the driver is just north of me here in the North Piece, though. And the pipelines that go through Chetwynd we're so respectful and honored that we get an opportunity to work with the LNG and our First Nations. We cannot forget the First Nations because they are the first people here. And one more comment on the First Nations and myself being from Treaty 8. The comment I heard was Canada was here for 200 years and the First Nations 10,000 years. So the discrepancy of calling us the First Nations being subject to the abuse that went on in our system with the schools. And today we hear of things that happen in our communities and in Canada. Sometimes you want to hang your head in shame, but no, we have to move forward. The education is a big part of what we do in our communities and in our region. We should educate our people, educate me so I could educate the future. And that's what Cheryl, making sure that we understand that we have something to give. And the giving is knowledge. Knowledge is the biggest giver from our heart, from our mind. As an individual person, we must educate.
That's so true. That's so true. Thank you, Mayor Courtoreille. And that's a perfect segue to introduce Gary to this part of the conversation, being that your community is building relationships and has been, and especially important now with the projects that are in the works up in your neck of the woods. If you want to give us a few words as well.
Sure. Well, when I first came to office, one of the first trips I made was the 5-kilometer trip from Fort Nelson to Fort Nelson First Nations to speak to who was the chief then, Chief Curtis Dickey. And I was quite surprised that he had not spoken to the previous mayor in over 2 years. And I was rather stunned at that. I mean, I had assumed that there was communication between the two groups, and so it was a learning experience coming from that starting point. And we were I think we were at a very low point where there was no communication between our two communities. So it was quite easy to build a relationship with, at that time, Curtis Dickey, and shortly after, Chief Gale became chief of Fort Nelson First Nations. And we took steps at that time to look at ways that we could bring our communities together. So I guess I wanted to start by recognizing that we're two very different peoples with two very different pasts. My past is Irish. My ancestors came over here when the potato famine of the 1880s or 90s or something like that. And Chief Gale's, of course, her people have been here for thousands of years, as Mayor Courtoreille had said. So we're two different peoples with two different paths, but we're one community. And we have to move forward into the future together, or we're both going to suffer a great deal. And we didn't have that relationship between our community and Fort Nelson First Nations. So in order to begin building that relationship, you know, it was not magic. It was almost like, I don't really want to use the analogy of like dating, but it was like, you know, sitting down and talking about things that affect both of our communities. So like Mayor Ackerman, on July the 1st, we put up Fort Nelson First Nations flag at our rec center, along with the flag of the United States, Canada, all the provinces, and now the flag of Fort Nelson First Nations. A small thing, but a very important gesture. At our rec center as well, because we wanted to, with our new mandate, we wanted to do something that was more inclusive for the community. And coming from, you know, the political bent of our community, it was not the most open and welcoming and inviting. And we thought that needed to change. So we did a rainbow crosswalk at our rec center. And all the counselors went out and we painted this to show the community that we want to be inclusive regardless of your orientation, etc. And Chief Gale recognized this too. And so she was a part of that too. So the counselors and Chief Gale all went out and painted this crosswalk. And these are very small gestures, but I think they're very meaningful. And it's very important that we show the community that we represent the direction that we're going to go here. And I am not an expert on the Indian Act or past history of what's happened to First Nations, but I recognize that what's gone on with First Nations is unacceptable. And rather than dwell on the past, I need to look at the future of our community and how we're going to get there and exactly what the process is. Chief Gale and I have a wonderful relationship, and I think Chief Gale is just wonderful. She's done amazing things for her community and for our community as well. It's important that we recognize that and we show the people that I represent what a benefit this has been. As Chief Courtoreille said, there are people out there with dark souls, and I recognize that, Chief Courtoreille. There are many of them. And as I've said to Chief Gale, we are not going to change those minds overnight, but we will change one mind at a time, and we will move forward, and we won't be stopped, and we are going to get to a better place tomorrow than what we're in today. And we're moving in that direction. And we have come miles, I mean miles, in just 2.5 years that I've been mayor. Chief Gale and I both sing out of the same songbook. We want the same thing for both our people. But I will say this, with two different governments, you are going to find instances where you don't agree on things. And just like any relationship that you might have with your spouse or your friend or whatever, you have to get by that. You have to find a way that you can talk about hard issues and you can disagree with things, but you're still friends. And I think we're doing that with Fort Nelson First Nations. And sometimes I look at the way the provincial government does things and I go, not quite the relationship that I want to have with First Nations. For me, it is more this we are one community, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to either prosper or we're going to be at loggerheads, and we are both going to suffer. As someone said, you can't sink half of a canoe. So that is about the state of things in Fort Nelson.
And it has been impressive, the progress in the relationship building. I see that for sure. And Mayor Dale Bumstead, let's get you into this conversation. And I know that just seeing everything that's been done in the Dawson Creek area, you are also a strong change agent. Tell us about what you're doing with our neighboring communities.
Sure. Thank you, Julie. And first of all, I want to talk briefly about the Kamloops residential prisons or internment camps. I've stated publicly I will refuse to refer to them as schools any longer. They were not schools. Schools are a place where we send our children that are a safe place. These were not a safe place. They were either a prison or an internment camp. And I will not ever refer to them as schools in the future as a school. And the leadership of Mayor Courtoreille and Chief Wilson and Chief Napoleon and Soto West Moberly, we signed a joint letter, the four of us, off expressing our sincere and heartfelt concern, obviously, of the discovery of these 215 children laying in a hole in Kamloops, and I express my appreciation to being a part of that. And that was I think our participation in there was that commitment to working together collaboratively with our neighbors. When I got elected 7 or 8 years ago, I took the approach that the neighbors that we have in our region, and they are our neighbors, Indigenous, non. I have a relationship. I have a great relationship with Fort St. John and Chetwynd and Tumbler Ridge and Pooskoopie and Hudson Hope, and we sit together at a table at the Peace River Regional District, and I had zero relationship or understanding with my Indigenous neighbors. And so I deliberately took the approach, I'm going to reach out to every one of those communities. I reached out to all 7 of them, West Moab, Soto, Doig, Blueberry, Halfway, Prophet, Fort Nelson, made a visit to each one of them, presented to their councils, and said, for me, we have this region that's an amazing region, and we should have a relationship as neighbors that I didn't feel I had with them. I guarantee they come to our community for their health care, for education, their trade. They come to our event center for concerts, but we didn't have a relationship together. And as I visited each one of them, and it struck me as I would tour their community offices and government buildings, that there they would have their doctor's office, a nurse's office, a dentist's office, their economic development office, their land office. And lots of those offices were empty because they couldn't attract people into their communities. And so it presented the idea of this to the Soto, and we forged a relationship agreement. We've signed a memorandum of understanding about 3 years ago that we're going to work together collaboratively on initiatives. And Gary talked a little bit about this, about how we benefit each other as communities. Healthcare, education, economic opportunities are those 3 strategic pillars that are exactly the same whether you're in an Indigenous community or a non-Indigenous community. Those are things that are important to us to build community. And so that resonated with Soto. We signed an agreement. And together we've been working together on initiatives around economic opportunities with our community, as well as some of the other First Nations communities. We developed this model, and it's through the initiative of all of the South Peace folks. We developed a South Peace Health Society, and through that we purchased a house just kitty corner from the hospital, and it's going to be a patient accommodation house. And we toured that with all of our First Nations neighbors and said to them, look, this is for the benefit of all. This is a facility that when your residents come to our community for acute care, for surgery, for have a baby or oncology, you got a place to stay in a home. And so the Soto has participated in it, and the Doig have participated in it financially, and the West Moab and Blueberry. And so that's, to me, initiatives where today it's as a result of having those relationships as neighbors that we work together collaboratively. And today, I say this in all sincerity, I got the cell number of every chief in the region. So, we have that relationship today, I think, as all of us, that now we work together and we collaborate with each other in a way that I don't think existed in the past. And to me, it's so positive to be able to have that relationship. And when issues arise, like the 215 children, there we are working together collaboratively on initiatives and talking to each other about that stuff. And as Laurie had mentioned, as Gary had talked about, when we signed the relationship agreement with SODO, we put a flagpole at City Hall, and we've been flying the Treaty 8 flag. And to me, those are all symbols of, I think, us working together collaboratively. We did the World Junior A Hockey Challenge. We do these hockey events all the time, and they've been very positive. And so we do an exhibition game out in Chetwynd with SODO West Moberly as partners, and to see that arena filled with Canada playing USA and the pride in their community, and you see the residents exuding that pride of hosting these international, that to me is where we can benefit each other in terms of our communities working together, and is so beneficial. And I'm so proud of that, of all of us in the region who I think have taken that step forward and ensuring that we are going to work together to build a stronger region and stronger as communities.
That is great. So just jumping off of what you mentioned there, Mayor Bumstead, with the Indigenous partners, we've talked a lot, especially today, about building those strong equity partnerships and responsible natural resource development, which all of our communities are very rich in. And I'm just going to quote in the Northern Development Initiatives Trust State of the North report earlier this year, where the CEO, Joel McKay, summarized how relatively less impacted we were up here in the North economically by the COVID-19 pandemic because of the natural resource development. And he mentioned current major projects in the region, Coastal GasLink, LNG Canada, Site C, TMX, they saved our economic bacon, as it were, which I'm sure all of you would tend to agree with. We weren't hit as hard as other industries and other areas of our province. And I'm listening to all of the communities in what you're doing to nurture a strong business climate. And I do see that with the strong relationships that you have with the chambers of commerce and the strong EDs that we have in those chambers. But that is contrary to what is happening with the move for a green recovery from the pandemic. In fact, last fall, the leaders of 12 major cities across the world, Vancouver being one of them, committed to divesting municipal investments and staff pensions from fossil fuel companies to invest in the greener recovery. So my question for all of you today is, how does your municipality, which we're rich in natural resource development opportunities, and we're building these relationships with our Indigenous neighbors, how do you balance that community economic development goal with the advancing climate solutions? And with this one, I'd like to maybe start with Mayor Ackerman.
Sure, thank you, Julie. Sorry. And the green recovery is a wonderful opportunity to engage in the natural gas industry, because it is a fuel that will absolutely initiate driving that. It's wonderful when you go down to the Union of BC Municipalities and you're able to sit there with your colleagues. And in one case, I was able to do that during a plenary on stage, and tell them that the entire region of Northeast BC is less than the population of the city of Prince George. Our natural gas industry right now is domestic until we start shipping it. And actually, I think there's the plant down in Dawson that has started shipping LNG, but very small. Until LNG Canada comes, there's very small, and it's usually a domestic market. We're pulling this natural gas out of the ground, processing it, and shipping it for the end users in the cities that are demanding it. And that's a reality. And if you look at Vancouver's climate action decisions, they've actually indicated in there that they will increase the use of their natural gas over the next many years. What they're going to be doing, though, is trying to use renewable natural gas. Well, we actually, as members of the Peace River Regional District, we are looking at gathering the methane from our landfills. That methane would then go into the pipeline. So I asked them where they were getting their renewable natural gas from, and it was clear that they were getting it, well, they said they were getting it from Ontario. Knowing that there is no pipeline that goes from Ontario to BC, what they're doing is they're buying it through credits. So are you actually decreasing your footprint, or is this a posturing thing? I think up here we are dedicated to looking at how we can actually decrease our footprint. We are one of the only regions in Canada that got together, and I should have dug it out. We did a Northeast climate risk assessment to look at how we would be impacted by, as municipalities, how our infrastructure could be impacted, what kind of changes there would be. Fort St. John was 2017 BC Clean Energy of Community of the Year because of our passive house that we built, the and the inline turbine that is making power. We have, if I tilt my screen right now, the camera might show you the net zero RCMP detachment that's being built right now. We actually have a renewable a water facility, a recycled water facility that's coming online. We've got a lot of things that are coming online. So we're not talking the talk, we are walking the walk up here. And I think that a lot of my colleagues that are on this call could rattle off a whole bunch of projects that we are working on that actually will make a difference.
And Mayor Courtoreille, how does your community balance those economic development goals with the green solution?
Well, start off with the green solution. I don't know about the balance. One of the reports that we got from our community was they wanted all the other things, but they wanted to stay small. So, you know, when you run into that stuff from your citizens, is that, yes, you want the economic values of big city or big communities, bigger communities than ours. We run into that situation of, well, we want to be that hometown small community. But one of the things that comes to mind right now through council, we had a presentation on EVs, so electric vehicles, and we thought that was I thought that was very very good of us, that we need to educate ourselves in that way of the future. I believe that if the clean energy and the electric vehicle being part of it, so we looked into that, and once they start producing the pickup truck, I believe then we will see the EV moving in direction with our industry. And that's where I believe the industry should be looking at, because we have fleets of trucks with Solaris Murphy here, and the other pipeline, Triple J. And so we see a lot of vehicles, and a lot of these vehicles are running on that greenhouse gas. So if we could do our part as industrial leaders to take just that small footprint away and bring us, we still need our petroleum. And if somebody tells me that we don't, I'd call them a liar, and I'd be right. So anyway, when we know about all these things about carbon footprints, we have to be able to be the leaders, because when we produce it, like Mayor Ackerman says, you better be able to talk the walk. And if you are there, you should be one of the leaders. And if you are not, then kind of go back to the recycling bin and let's have a good look.
Agreed. I'm going to switch the question up for Mayor Bertrand. In greening the global economy, what are the obstacles and challenges that Tumbler Ridge is facing, and what supports do you need from industry and the governments, both at the provincial and the federal level?
Yeah, thank you, Julie. You know, there's going to be challenges and obstacles in everything, but you know, we in the Tumbler Ridge Global Geopark, we have 145 wind turbines operating right beside metallurgical coal mines that make the steel to build the wind turbines, all within a UNESCO Global Geopark. it's quite an interesting story. I think it's a nice balance. But there are other wind parks proposed. There is 3, I believe, that are on the books, but unfortunately had to come to an end because of the end to the call for power by BC Hydro. So I think first and foremost, once Site C is completed, I'm hoping there will be another call for power so that some of these green initiatives projects can take place. I think another big hurdle for Tumbler Ridge, but also for the region, is connectivity. During the last year and a half, we've all realized how virtual everything has gone, and if you don't have connectivity, you're in trouble. So Tumbler Ridge has definitely taken a big priority to try and increase our connectivity. We just had our recent challenges with our wildlife situation, taking out our fiber optic cable. So, that really highlights the need for redundancy in the connectivity. The previous grants, a lot of them were for end of mile projects, but the problem with end of mile is there isn't redundancy, and we have a lot of beavers in Canada. So I think that's another one. And I think there's opportunities for the government, both provincial and federal, to step up and really provide that financial opportunity to increase connectivity. Most municipalities could not afford any type of infrastructure to increase their connectivity. So I think the government definitely needs to increase the grant program on that. But Tumbler Ridge is truly open for business. We have a lot of area, a lot of infrastructure in the area to support green initiatives. We have 3 creeks, lots of running water, lots of wind opportunities, as well as pipelines, rail, and small airports. So, as far as a company wanting to get into a green initiative project, Tumbler Ridge is situated perfectly for that. I can't say enough really of the ESG practices and standards that our industry partners have implemented in our region. All of them have been very involved in the community and giving back. For example, one Miko Wind sponsors a free Mother's Day brunch for the community every year. So it's just a small token, but it's very appreciated. And Canooma Resources has partnered with the high school on many other projects as well. A new one is upcoming here next school season. It's going to be very exciting. So kudos to all of our industry partners for their ESG practices around Tumbler Ridge.
Exactly. And the conversation after this panel is going to be with local industry partners. So it will be interesting to see how ESG fits with that and how they will be working with our communities. And with that, Gary, would you like to chime in on how Fort Nelson balance?
Sure. Well, generally, the economy in Fort Nelson's been struggling, the natural gas economy, because of our distance from market and the fact that the natural gas here is dry, and some of it has a high CO2 content. But just to add to what Mayor Bertrand and Mayor Ackerman had said, Canada produces a very small amount of the greenhouse gases globally. I think it's about 1%, and maybe Mayor Ackerman can correct me on that if my numbers are wrong. But we've got other global players here that produce a tremendous amount of greenhouse gases. And the natural gas that comes from BC can offset that and reduce the amount of greenhouse gases that places like India and China can produce. It seems to me that it makes very little sense to strangle the very industry in Canada that is going to reduce greenhouse gas emissions globally. And if we simply look at our own country and try to reduce natural gas and oil consumption and fossil fuels and not invest in them, then what's going to happen is we're going to see a lot of coal production, or a lot of generation of power using coal. when natural gas would have been much more efficient and would reduce the global amount of natural or the greenhouse gases. The other thing that was just touched on was the fact that to stand up and say that I'm against greenhouse gas emissions is a very catchy phrase. It gets a lot of media attention, and it's very popular these days. It's not until you get down and you start to ask somebody in Toronto exactly how are they going to heat their house and what the cost is going to be to them. And that is a much different conversation. And I noticed that a lot of the people who object to the fossil fuel industry in Canada certainly don't want to get into that conversation with people, because they pretty soon find out that it's cost prohibitive and it doesn't accomplish the goals that they were looking for in the first place. So anyway, I look forward to the natural gas industry coming back to the Northern Rockies. And I think, natural gas is a good news story for British Columbia. I think it displaces an awful lot of greenhouse gases globally. And I think it's something that we need to invest in and we need to expand.
Great, thank you. And we have a few minutes left together, and I still want to find out about what each of your communities are doing in your continued efforts to be a welcoming and inclusive community in terms of livability and that nurturing of a strong business climate. So I asked Mayor Bumstead if you would have a few words to chat about what's happening in Dawson Creek, maybe in more detail. You did touch on quite a bit in your intro, but is there anything specific that you would like to share with us?
Yeah, we feel we're really a very fortunate community with the diversity of the economy that exists in the South Peace and in Dawson Creek. And obviously agriculture is the foundation that started our community and brought the railway in here in 1931. And through the years, the forestry, the mining, and now the natural gas sector. And so we're impacted in a very positive way by all of that. And, LP just did a modification of their plant a year and a half ago and turned it into a smart siding plant and put 130 million into capital and added another 50 or 60 direct jobs. Natural gas industry is vibrant right now, and our hotels are running at 100% occupancy. For us, we really focused on this diversification, and we really like the aspect of the event sport tourism model that we've developed with having that in Canada Event Center, and we host these amazing concerts. And now we got a 5-year agreement with Hockey Canada where we're putting on a major event every year, and we see that as being the benefit of our community of having that infrastructure to be able to leverage all of those core resource driven sectors. And as I say, they're all very, very strong right now for us. But this event and sport tourism gives us that, I think, that advantage of where we're turning the highway around in terms of people from Grand Prairie coming to Dawson Creek to come to concerts, and we host the world in some of these hockey events and concerts and world-class entertainment. And so I see that as a benefit to us, not only as our community, but the region, because as Keith talks about the Geopark and Laurie with High on Ice and their Festival Plaza and the Chatwin chainsaw carving and on and on and on, we do all these really amazing things that we have as really strong amenities within each of our communities as a region. That I think that to me is what we're really focusing on right now, and we see that as a real benefit, and we've seen the economic benefit to our community for that. We got another brand new hotel under construction right now, just as a result of that. So that for us is we really see that as the diversification has really been the key to weathering some of these impacts that each of the sectors go through depending on the commodity price.
Mm-hmm. I'm an employer here in Fort St. John, and a big thing with us is the recruitment and retention of our people. Skilled people, it's going to be, has been an issue with bringing people to the north to serve in any industry. And our local industry partners that will be coming in the panel after us are probably going to be talking about that same thing, that shortage of people. And I'd ask Mayor Ackerman, what is your visions for Fort St. John and upcoming projects to help with this shortage?
Sure, thank you. Government moves at the speed of sloth most days. And really, when you get up in the morning, we should be the last people that you think about, as much as some of my colleagues may not think so. But businesses need certainty. And so government, especially local government, needs to really take a planned and principled approach to how we build community for the future, because this is where you're going to be recruiting people to. So I'm a firm believer in the economic theory where you build for children so that families will come here, they'll raise their children here, those kids will get their post-secondary education. When they're looking for a place to be, they too will do that. So a few years ago, we started the MoveUpHere.ca project. And in this little book, it's got what it really takes to live up here. And, we've got, for example, first page is the airport, and, just one stop and you can be in 96 international destinations. And so if you can come up here with your family and your partner, and you can both get good jobs, good careers, that's a real bonus to moving forward, building a family, kickstarting your career, or restarting your career, that we're finding a lot of people looking at. Louisiana Pacific has reopened here, where we have provided them with our professionally made videos and our information here that they can use in their AHR strategies. I have offered to help them with recruiting any key personnel that they may need, and I have offered that to other businesses and industries as well, and so I continue to do that. Apparently Minister Dix mentioned an audit today in his remarks with MLA Davies, and that's an audit that we asked for. We want to know if there is appropriate and adequate investment in healthcare here. Healthcare, education, public safety, pillars, that's the foundation we build community off of. And that we work with our partnership, that we've created through the school district. Many people are familiar with that beautiful gymnasium at the Margaret Montgomery community school. It's a community school because the city council contributed $2.5 million to upgrade that gym. That's how you build community. We've got loads of things that are happening right now to build that. And a lot of that is data gathering, so that we can take that empirical data to the decision makers at the senior levels of government. But lots going on.
Great. And I want to hear from Keith and Alan. So Keith, if you have a minute or so to let us know what your visions are at Tumbler Ridge and area.
Yeah, absolutely. So a couple of projects this summer. Our Tumbler Ridge Mountain Bike Association is building a paved pump track. Pump track is basically a double figure eight with a bunch of rollers and sloped ends. So it's going to be built to Red Bull specs, and it's going to be quite an addition. It's right near our downtown, so it's a central location. As well, I think another really important one for inclusion and really a sense of community is our festival grounds. We had a couple of old ball diamond areas where we had a wind blade manufacturing place last year. And then when they were completed, one of our nonprofit societies asked to lease that area to develop a festival grounds. So it was basically the nonprofit that used to put on our Grizzfest concerts and festivals. And so this summer they're building a stage and a gazebo and infrastructure, planting trees, and it's going to be an excellent area to host all kinds of different events for the community and our neighbors as well. So also in the future, our Tumbler Ridge Mountain Bike Association received a $500,000 grant from the provincial government to develop mountain biking trails on the ridge beside Tumbler Ridge here as well. So lots of exciting things happening, and our Global Geopark visitor numbers are up every year. People have certainly found Tumbler Ridge, and it's exciting, but it's scary to some sense too, because we really have to take a look at all of our infrastructure and ensure capacity as well.
Yes, the Game of Thrones found Tumbler Ridge.
Yes.
Yep. Throwing dice. Over
Alan,
5,000 people.
yeah. Alan, last but not least, tell us the vision in Chetwynd.
Thank you very much. We take the citizens' view very seriously, and some of them, like I mentioned before, they wanted amenities from the big city, but yet want to stay small. But anyway, moving forward with that remark, quality of life. Quality of life meaning that the children and up. Spray Park is one of the things we'll be building here in Chetwynd. And another thing for every walk of life, that the pet owners, just a little bit of quality of life for the mental part and for some physical part for the animal, I guess, to run in a dog park. We are creating a dog park in Chetwynd. So, those two things alone, I always under the understanding that if you have them coming here, keep them coming back. And maybe some of them will buy a residence in any of our communities. So I believe the future is people. It's not natural gas. It's not but that's what drives us. But it's the people that are the future. So the quality of life is very important. Connectivity, greenhouse, carbon footprint. We have to believe in all of that. If we don't believe in all of that, we should be somewhere else and believing that we are the persons that will lead us to that place. And if we don't, we have to be able to go back and reassess and do our assessment with conviction. If we're not convincing ourselves in our community that the future is with ourselves, then we have some kind of issues, and we will work them out. We've always had that issue. My Coco, my grandmother, and my mom told me, always had it up there. The answer's up there, and the feelings down there. They all come from the same spot. So individuals like that, my grandmother and my mother, I respected them from the day they dropped me on the ground and says, "Get on your feet and get going." So. Future, the people are the future, and I believe in that. And the orange shirt, I'm going to wear it out, and I believe that what we're doing today is to move to the future, and then Canada itself will move with us, because I know, and all the leaders that are sitting here today, yourself included, that we are the ones that are going to move us forward, and we will always have that in our hearts. Thank you for inviting me, and it was a pleasure seeing all of my colleagues and others that I haven't met in person yet today. It was a pleasure of mine. Thank you very much, Julie.
Thanks. And wise words kind of to close our panel discussion. I wanted to thank all of you for the opportunity to sit together here today. I'm so proud to live in northeastern British Columbia. It is the land of opportunity for all. And thank you all for serving and leading our communities to what I hope to be a prosperous future for us with the LNG and our other natural resource development. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie.
And I'll just pop in and thank you all as well very much. Mayors Foster, Ackerman, Bertrand, Bumstead, and Courtoreille. Say it again.
Courtoreille.
Courtoreille. We had a discussion about how to pronounce your name earlier, and I still managed to get it wrong.
You failed?
I failed. Big fail. Sorry about that. I'm going to call you Mayor Allen. How about that?
Just call me Mayor, Your Honor. That's fine.
Oh, okay. So I want to thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us today. Really great conversation. I also want to say a huge thank you to Julie Ziebart, who she's one of our community leaders and one of our community champions all the time, for certain, with the chamber. And she's actually one of our newest directors on the BC Chamber. So she's going to be bringing our voice south on behalf of the chamber and, a lot of our advocacy work that we do down south. So thank you, Julie, for everything that you bring to the chamber and to all that we do, actually. So thank you, everybody. Please join us in about 15 minutes for our very last session with some industry leaders and what's happening around the region with them. So I look forward to seeing you there. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
See everyone.
Bye.
Good afternoon.